came up 3,506 votes short, less than 1%. A difference of 1,753 votes would have changed the outcome of this election. So I'm disappointed by the result, but I respect the will of our city's voters. I want us to continue to operate, let me say that again. The message I received is that they want us to continue to operate this city with our existing resources, and that's what we'll do. That said, I want to be extremely clear that that will not be easy. Right now, as we look at our budget process, we are facing an estimated budget deficit of $258 million next year. This is a structural deficit that is a result of an imbalance between revenues versus spending that has accumulated over multiple administrations and has worsened because of high inflation that has driven up costs worldwide over the last few years. To put that $258 million deficit in perspective, last year we closed a $170 million budget deficit. And you'll recall that closing that gap was not easy. This one will be even more difficult. Now, we were able to do that last year with a combination of surgical cuts and the expenditure of one-time resources. We will no longer be able to do that. And while doing this is going to be a tremendous challenge, I actually like to see it as an opportunity. This is an opportunity to reimagine how our city operates and the services that it provides. And this is the work that I will do as your mayor, working with our city council and with city staff over the coming weeks and months. That said, a budget deficit of this size requires immediate action to begin saving money. So today I'm announcing that effective tomorrow, I'm freezing all but the most essential of hiring, suspending all non-essential overtime, pausing non-essential spending on things like travel and training, reviewing all projects in our capital improvement program to prioritize completing projects that are currently under construction, but limiting or eliminating the construction of new facilities, halting the Civic Center revitalization proposal, evaluating city office space leases, including the potential to renegotiate or eliminate or terminate existing city leases and bring those employees into city-owned facilities, and exploring the opportunity to monetize city facilities like Golden Hall in the adjacent parking structure. Since the beginning of my administration, I have focused on 4 key priorities: keeping San Diego safe, addressing our homelessness crisis, building more homes, and fixing our roads. These priorities will not be changing. We're beginning this budget process by requiring all city departments to budget from scratch, focusing their work on delivering only the most essential of services. My finance team and I will work with the City Council, with civic organizations, our employee unions, and members of the general public to reimagine how this municipal corporation operates and to set it up for long-term success. My goal in this endeavor is to avoid a series of deep cuts in successive budget years and instead right-size our city services to the resources that we have without the expectation of increased revenue. Long story short would be that we try and address this challenge over the next 6 to 18 months, not over the next number of years. Including my time as a city council member, as council president, as interim mayor, and now as the city's 37th mayor, I've been a participant in 12 city budgets. And I've included balancing budgets under the most difficult of circumstances, most specifically during the global financial crisis in the late 2000s. I've seen this before, we've been here before, and we've gone through it before, and we'll do it again. My commitment to San Diegans is to prudently lead us through these challenging times and to deliver a city budget that is balanced and on time. To do this, partnership with the City Council, to come to grips with our fiscal reality and to deliver the city services San Diegans truly need will be absolutely essential. And so I'd like to turn this podium over to our City Council President Pro Tem, Councilmember Joe LaCava. Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you all for joining us today, a very important moment for the city. With the release of the 5-year budget outlook and the mayor's strategy, we start the budget process, a process that culminates with adopting a budget next June. The takeaway from the outlook is unmistakable. This will be one of the most difficult budgets that the City Council will have faced in our past 4 years together. As you heard, yes, prior budgets were challenging. Difficult decisions had to be made, but we had mitigation measures to soften the blow. State relief and federal relief dollars helped us address revenue shortfalls and pivoted the city to be more responsive to the needs of San Diegans, all San Diegans. In the past 4 years, the council listened to the public and expanded city services by investing in our city's most important asset, our employees. The council listened to the public and invested in our city's infrastructure by reversing decades of little to no maintenance, making historic investments in our streets, our street lights, our storm drains, our parks, and so much more. To be clear, this outlook reveals that there is no mitigation. There are no one-time sources of funds. We must make do with the revenue that the residents, the businesses, and the tourists send our way. Revenue that is insufficient to meet the needs of our city. To the 50% of the voters who understood this and voted yes on Measure E, I thank you. But now we must deal with the insufficient revenue that may reverse some of the progress we have made over the past 4 years. The takeaway is unmistakable. We must cut expenses, and some of those cuts will be deep, very deep. But it is an opportunity to right-size government. The mayor proposes solving the deficit in 1 year, and I know my council colleagues will take that proposal very, very seriously. As a city that runs through the day in and day out work of our employees, we must protect those who deliver city services, those who protect the public, those who operate our libraries and recreation centers. The council will work to protect all city services, but the outlook tells us that will not be possible. For our residents and businesses that demand better infrastructure, who tire of potholes and dark street lights, who are frustrated by aging storm drains, parks, and city buildings, who are scared of potential flooding, the council will work to protect critical and essential infrastructure. The outlook tells us that we will fall short. Addressing the lack of adequate revenue is not the only issue in front of us. As a city who often stepped up when other layers of government did not, the council will not be shy in demanding their action now. Whether it is homelessness, behavioral health, care court, or recuperative care, we expect those jurisdictions to do their part. Today, I stand before you, and I know my colleagues, Council President Elo Rivera and Budget Chair Councilmember Lee, would join me in saying that the council will not wait to engage and consider the mayor's strategy. I appreciate the mayor extending a hand of partnership in this very difficult and challenging situation. I will ask my council colleagues to engage now, to be strategic in our thinking and surgical in our cuts, to ensure the safety of all San Diegans, to protect our most vulnerable residents, to meet the needs of our under-resourced neighborhoods, to ensure a thriving economy. The council begins its work today in advance of next Wednesday's Budget Committee. That committee will formally hear the 5-year budget outlook, and we will hear an assessment by our independent budget analysts. And next Wednesday will also be the first of many opportunities for the public to weigh in. And let me say to the public, your voices are essential to crafting this budget. And in light of our daunting challenge, I will ask the council president to consider modifying the regular budget review process so the council can weigh in before the preliminary budget comes out in April, so that each of my council colleagues can share the critical and essential needs of their district and their constituents, and to give the public more opportunities to weigh in. We can, we must, and we will work together to solve this challenge. I look forward to the partnership with the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Pro Tem. I appreciate the chance to have both the executive and legislative branches in alignment on the challenges that we see ahead. I'm joined this morning, as you can see, by our Chief Financial Officer, Matt Vespi, and our Finance Director, Rolando Cheval. We're all available for questions.
As the Civic Center revitalization help, what are the savings associated with stopping that process right now?
It'll be fairly minimal. As you may know, we've been going on a multiple-year effort to assess our space needs here in downtown and figure out a way to get out of our existing city leases, which are millions annually, and to consolidate in one facility that we would own. We have had the help of our former Chief Operating Officer, Jay Goldstone, to help us do that work, and we've engaged a number of consultants, some with the assistance of philanthropic funds, to get that project moving forward. What I'm announcing today is we're pausing that, largely because I don't believe there's any way that we can do that without some expense to the general fund, and that's just not a priority at this point. So what that means is that the building that we're in right now, with this fantastic air conditioning that you're experiencing, will be our state of affairs for going forward. It will cause us to probably have to make some minimal expenditures because we're going to be here for a while, and we need to make sure this is a safe facility, one that works well for employees and for the general public. But again, my hope would be that we can renegotiate or terminate some of our existing leases to save millions for taxpayers, and those dollars could be used to help our bottom line and avoid service cuts in other parts of our city.
Would that potentially include would that potentially include reducing the overall office space you occupy in order to allow more work from home for city workers? Yeah. And what does this mean for 101 Ash Street?
Well, we're currently evaluating proposals the city has received for 101 Ash Street. That will continue to move forward. That is a way to address that long-term challenge in a way that we're hopeful, council is hopeful, and I share that hope of developing housing that we desperately need. So that's really separate. What we're talking about was either the construction of a new city facility or the purchase of an existing building. Those things will not be happening.
And what would potentially monetizing Golden Hall include?
Well, the last of our unsheltered residents that have been living there for the last number of years will exit that facility next week. They're being relocated to a variety of shelter sites across the city. We've announced those in recent weeks and months. And so that process will be complete, meaning to say that Golden Hall will be empty by the end of the month. To answer your question, we're going to have to figure out what that is. That could be that we move employees in there as a means of, again, avoiding costs of leased facilities elsewhere into an asset that we own and operate. It may be that we offer it up for programming by other folks to see if they might utilize it. I'll note, I believe the Rolling Stones performed there once. We were
Grateful Dead, too.
Grateful Dead. We had a lucrative business in tattoo expos and reptile shows that were once there that did generate some revenue for the city. And every nickel we can make will go to our bottom line to pave more roads and house more homeless people. So remains to be seen what that would look like. But it's given that we're no longer have a use for Golden Hall when we conclude its operation as a homeless shelter. As a city-owned facility, something that's an asset of the taxpayers, it's important that it actually have some use. And so we'll explore and see if there's a partner that's willing to perhaps operate that on our behalf or find some other way to either make money or avoid costs.
What does this practically mean for homelessness as a pillar that you had and trying to shelter more individuals and also for the mega shelter that you wanted? Where do negotiations stand with this budget? I'd like to focus.
So let me go in reverse order. We continue to negotiate with the owner of the property at Kettner and Vine. Those negotiations have been going very well, and we continue to need more shelter beds. Whether it's that site or other sites, we continue to explore opportunities. We had a request for information that went out and closed recently, where a number of property owners offered up property for our consideration as homeless shelters. So we're going to have to consider those range of options. Kettner and Vine, existing city-owned facilities, some of these respondents to the proposal that we put out, and see which of them are viable and which of them fit with our limited resources. A part of why this will continue is, number one, homelessness is the top issue in the city. It's what I hear the most from San Diegans about. And in an era of austerity, we have to continue to prioritize this. Public safety, build more homes, and fixing the roads will be our priorities. But with regard to homelessness, it's a bit unique. We do receive assistance from the state of California in the form of HAP and Home Key grants that could allow us to continue to make progress in expanding our offerings. We also have efficiencies that you're seeing where we're taking a facility like Veterans Villages of San Diego on Pacific Highway, something that the taxpayers of this city paid to construct, but in recent history has been vacant. When we have the opportunity, as we are doing now, of reactivating that site and putting more beds there, you can see how this is a bit of a puzzle that we're putting together, and my direction to staff is to continue to make progress on getting people off the sidewalks and into shelters as quickly as possible. And because of state resources and who knows, maybe federal resources, we could do more. The last thing I would say, and I want to amplify what our Council President Pro Tem mentioned, we could use help from all other jurisdictions on this. I was in Sacramento earlier this week in hopes of continuing to get state funding for those kinds of projects. We need county assistance on this. We partner with the county on at least two of our shelters, the Seahart Shelter on Sports Arena Boulevard and the Sprung Structure on Rosecrans, but we could use the county's partnership on all of our shelters. We have dozens of others that we do without direct county assistance. Other cities could also do their part. A reminder that there are 18 incorporated cities in the county of San Diego. a majority, provide no shelter at all, but all of them have homeless populations. When that happens, those folks necessarily come to the cities that do provide shelter, including the city of San Diego. The taxpayers of San Diego can no longer afford to foot that bill. Those other cities should follow our lead and take vacant parking lots and turn them into safe parking lots, open up shuttered city facilities and make them shelters, as we've done here, or partner with other agencies to build more shelter. All of us have a role in solving this problem, and this budget situation will make that even more clear.
Mr. Mayor, is there any discussion of, if it gets to this point, like asking some employees for early retirement or consolidating departments?
So, question as you heard is in terms of organizational impact and employee impact. I'm not prepared to make any announcements along those lines right now. There may be direct impacts to employees. We're still trying to figure out what that would look like and what's the way to be most respectful of that. Mindful of what the council president said just a moment ago, I might ask him to amplify. But I want to say that one of the best things I think we've done over the last 4 years is create a situation where the city of San Diego is an employer of choice, where we used to have massive vacancies in this organization. And let's be clear, those vacancies mean that there are not people fixing the streetlights, not paving our roads, opening our libraries, responding to 911 calls. So the fact that we've been able to adjust our compensation to attract more people to come work for us is a good thing. I don't want to lose that momentum. And so we're going to work with our employee groups to figure out how to do this in a way that is respectful of employees and maintains the services to the extent possible in our neighborhoods. This will be an enormous challenge. But the alternative is to go back to a situation where we have tons of vacant positions. People are not necessarily applying to work for the city of San Diego, and therefore the business of the public is not getting done. So this will be a balance. This will not be easy. There certainly will be some adjustments that we'll have to do. I've been in direct communication with all 6 of our employee unions. All of them understand the circumstances we're in, and I'm grateful that all of them are willing to engage in a conversation, recognizing the finances for what they are. Council President Pro Tem, did you want to amplify more of your comments on employees?
Sure. I think the mayor said it very well. You know, by and large, the city of San Diego is really a service organization, and that service, those city services are delivered every day by our 12,000 employees. And somewhere the prior administrations lost sight of that, and so you had too many vacancies, you had employees doubling up, and that affects morale. And when they look at compensation, that further degrades with the work that they do. And that was really one of the key things that we have done over the past 4 years is to really turn that 180 degrees. So I really appreciate the mayor's leadership in this, the council's leadership in understanding this. And we've really turned a corner here. And we've seen that dramatically impact because now I don't get the complaints from my constituents that we used to. We don't have 6,000 get it done requests begging for someone to deal with it. We're seeing tremendous turnaround. And we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of this. On the other hand, we have a budget deficit that we have to reconcile. And so those will be the difficult conversations going forward. But I appreciate the mayor's leadership. I, too, have met with some of the bargaining units. There is an understanding of the challenges we have. We're all going to be in this together to figure this out, make sure we protect our employees to the degree that we can, we deliver the city services that San Diegans need, and make sure that we get through this budget cycle, and then we'll figure out what comes next. Thank you.
2 questions. One about parking meter revenue. So the city obviously cannot raise the sales tax without the approval of voters, but it has quite a bit of discretion over the rate that people pay at parking meters, the number of parking meters that are in the parking districts. And while that revenue can't go straight into the general fund, it could be spent on some of these priorities you're talking about. So is that on the table, changing the rate of parking, the number of parking meters in the districts? And second question is about some of the revenue opportunities that are on the horizon but are not totally sealed, like Measure C, this TOT increase, and the trash pickup fees and what impacts those could have. I assume those are factored into these numbers, but could you maybe talk about the scale of those revenue opportunities and how they might, if they might, offset some of these cuts?
Realizing I'm the city council side, I'm not the operations side, and I'm not the mayor. But I think, Andrew, the point that the mayor was trying to make and I was trying to emphasize that everything is on the table and we have to carefully consider what the balance is. As you know, parking district revenue is split between the local district and the city. We will look at that to see what the advantages and disadvantages is. And I think you raised a very key point that really came across in last year's budget conversation. We have to do a better job in terms of telling the story of what this really means. The public doesn't have the bandwidth to understand the nuances of city financing, the various buckets we have. And when we cut one program and they get excited, we have to explain, no, you're going to get the services that you expect in a different bucket. And your point about the parking district, those funds are very narrowly limited in terms of what they can be spent on. But whether the parking district spends them or whether the city spends them, they will have the same positive outcome out of that. As you mentioned, and I can really let the good folks from the Department of Finance explain, a lot of those potential revenues that we see on the horizon, I believe, are being considered into the budget. We need to understand what the timing is and how they will actually manifest itself. Some of those require city council approval. I believe the council members will support those actions going forward, but that will be part of the conversation over the next several months.
Let me just do a couple adds to what the Council President Pro Tem said, which is on point. With regard to the numbers that you see, they're not reflective of those new revenue sources. Together, they're about $100 million, about $70 million, potentially up to $70 million for trash, about $30 million for the TOT. Both are uncertain, as Council President Pro Tem mentioned. We're still in litigation with regard to the TOT, and the City Council and the city as a whole is still engaged with the public on trash collection. So those are both uncertain, so we can't have them in the outlook, but they surely can be a part of the solution. I would identify myself with what the Council President Pro Tem said about parking meters. That's an option that's there. If we can take those revenues and invest them into our transportation department in those neighborhoods that do have meters, so we're doing more road repair, more light repairs, et cetera. That would be one way to offset or mitigate potential reductions to necessary neighborhood service levels. And that would be something I'd be extremely interested in. I'll just throw some other things that you didn't ask, but I'll throw it on there. Full cost recovery for city services. Some of the services we provide at the city are not fully cost recoverable. That may be something that we need to adjust in order, again, to offset other reductions. And fines are also something that we should probably take a look at and see if we're recovering, if they're having the intended effect in terms of prohibiting or reducing the behavior that we don't like. This would be a time to look at those again.
Can you give some examples of the cost recovery, where you would be perhaps increasing fees or?
We're going to look at all of them. I mean, but we do cost recovery on, any number of permits that we offer, use of city facilities, things of that nature. All those have to be on the table.
And does your shortfall outlook include the savings that you're projecting from all of these immediate cuts in the remainder of this year?
No.
And so what would be the projected savings in the remaining 7 months?
I don't know that we can tell, but you may want to. Matt, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Matt Vesby, City's Chief Financial Officer. As far as estimates for hiring freeze, reducing non-essential spending, overtime, we estimate several $1 million. We don't have specific projections at this point, but it'll be several $1 million. And really what it sets in motion is creating additional cash that's available at the end of fiscal year 25 that helps mitigate our projected deficit for fiscal year 26. So it's really about setting us up in a better place to start that fiscal year 26 financial position.
Bottom line is these reductions are not $258 million worth of savings, so additional reductions will be necessary. Any other folks?
I have a question.
Yes.
Let's talk about how this deficit will affect the police departments. Public safety, one of your 4 pillars that you're going to focus on with the budget dollars you do have. So we know the numbers of police officers. The staffing is historically low. It's leading to really long response wait times because of that. So what plans are in place to assure people that public safety will not be compromised any further because of possible cuts to the police department in this deficit?
Sure. A couple of things. First of all, let me be very clear. The number one responsibility of this organization is the protection of the people and property of this city, and that will not be changing. That'll be made harder by this news, but that won't be changing. And so when given to choose between parking meter rates or having police officers, paramedics, firefighters, and lifeguards doing their jobs, I'm always going to choose public safety every single time. With regard to your representation about staffing, we're at about 1,800 plus officers. That's about where we've generally been. We do have a number of retirements that are coming in 2025 and 2026. That's not insignificant, but we can try and address that. Some of the compensation efforts and benefit efforts that the Council President Pro Tem was talking about is precisely why the attrition of officers to other law enforcement agencies has slowed down, why some folks have extended their careers with the city. And so my hope is that those investments from the last 4 years are going to continue to pay some dividends over the next couple of years that we're going to be severely lean around here. Beyond that, I think the best thing that we can do is properly resource our department, give our officers both the tools and the policies to allow them to do their jobs. I've been doing that the last 4 years as mayor. I'm going to do that for the next 4 years as mayor. I think all of that will help make sure that our police department continues to function well. The goal, Anna, is always going to be that when you call 911, someone will pick up your call and we will send the appropriate trained professional to your door to take care of whatever it is you need. I don't expect that to change. I'm also not representing that's going to be easy to do. It's going to be extremely difficult, but that's the hand that we've been dealt, and that's the job that we'll have to do.
What do you want to tell people that are frustrated by these long response wait times? That's what we keep hearing from people.
Right. Those are for the lower priority calls. We make our standards when it comes to high priority, extreme emergency calls. Those other ones are difficult, and we have to figure out new and different ways to try and address that. That can be everything from having non-sworn folks take on some of those responsibilities to having technological interventions to try and address those things. We've seen a lot of progress in our water department by transferring a lot of tasks that previously you had to talk to a live human, and now you can go through a website and call times as wait times at the Public Utilities Department have fallen dramatically by employing those kinds of strategies. I'm not suggesting we should do that for 911 calls, but I'm just telling you there's multiple ways to get to the concern that you're hearing. Yeah, we'd like to have more officers, but again, lowering the attrition rate, not losing officers to other jurisdictions the way we have in recent years. In fact, the opposite. We see folks coming to come work for us. That's fantastic, and that will accrue to everyone's benefit. But this is going to be extremely difficult, but I can't make it any more clear than I already have. Public safety is our #1 priority. That will not be changing. And when push comes to shove, if it's this versus something else, we're going to always choose public safety. I should also say, though, there will be reductions in this department. I've already spoken with Police Chief Wall. We're coming up with ideas on how the department can save money. I believe there are ways that we can do that without dramatically impacting service levels. But at the end of the day, public safety is our top priority, and that will continue to be that.
Can you tell us what some of those ways are that they can cut?
I'm not prepared to do that, but I mean, these are, I believe, here's the benefit of hiring a professional like Scott Wall to be our police chief. He knows his way around the department. He's already made commitments to try and address our overtime budget issues and has been working towards centralizing that effort in order to save costs. To the extent that he's successful in doing that, that will certainly help with our budget challenges. This current budget year, we moved to what they call king units, which is combining officers in one squad car rather than two, which actually does save money. So those are strategies that we're already implementing. More of that would be the kinds of stuff that I'm talking about. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for letting me share this information with you. We'll surely have more of these conversations going forward. I appreciate the chance to share this with your readers, viewers, listeners. We'll stay in touch.